There we go. And hello, and welcome to another episode of Labs Open Office Hour. This one is actually really pretty special today because we're joined by president and founder of Puget Systems. The whole reason we're here today, Jon Bach. Thank you very much, John, for joining us today. This is always exciting to talk to you because I feel like not a lot of the people at the top of the pyramid, do this sort of thing. So.
Oh, well, I
And
think
plus,
it's a
it's
lot of
always
fun.
fun to talk with you. Yeah. So, yeah, it's always good to have you on, and it's always good to chit chat with you and kind of get some perspective of things from the top down. So,
Sure, and boy, what a time for it. There's a lot going on.
so just in case anybody doesn't know who you are already, go ahead and give yourself a
Oh,
bit of an
sure.
introduction, who you are, what you do, why you're here, I guess.
Okay, all right. So I'm Jon Bach. Founded the company almost 20 years ago. 20 years ago in like 3 months. And yes, we've been around for a long time. We've done everything from build gaming PCs to home PCs. And the last decade, we've really dedicated our lives to workstations and meeting the needs of content creators and engineers and data scientists. And so I'm here to make sure that's all going on plan to kind of set the plan and to make sure that everyone in their roles can be successful in moving forward. And yeah, that's kind of challenging in 2020, but we're doing good. We're good. We're doing good. We're plugging along. We're helping people, and beyond everything that's going on with coronavirus in the world. Even aside from that, this would have been a nuts year, a crazy year, just in
Oh.
the tech industry with how much is going on.
For sure, for sure. I mean, just before the beginning of the year, there was the Ryzen CPU launch, the Ryzen 3, and all that good stuff. And now, of course, just recently, everything top of mind for everyone. New NVIDIA GPUs. That's
Yes.
super exciting.
Yes.
So we have
Absolutely.
the next generation RTX cards. There's talk about double the performance of the top tier cards from last generation at half the cost, and they're humongous. Weird cooling issue, or weird sort of strange cooling and things like that. What do you have to add that maybe hasn't already been said?
Oh, for this year?
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's the big of it. I mean, there was a lot of things that happened this year that you thought see that again. I don't know that I'll ever see. It's like a once in a decade event that you see
Hmm.
in leap has happened before.
Oh,
But
sure. Oh, we're getting a little spotty here. It looks like it's on my end here.
it's been a long time. I'll just hang out a little bit here.
Yeah, one moment here.
It
I don't
could
know
very
this.
well be me as well. I've had pretty terrible internet today.
Let me see if we'll to try and take some strain off my computer here. Maybe that'll do it.
Yeah.
So say that all
Okay.
again. It was some leapfrogging. It's been a once in a
Because
decade sort of thing.
I forget what I was saying. No. Yeah. It's a once in a decade event that we see the processor giants compete like they are today, and that's super exciting. It was a lot of work for us, to take our product line and basically double it, right? And we want to make sure that we can do
Yeah.
double the product line at not half the quality, so it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was big. And then, this NVIDIA launch is huge as well, not only for the performance reasons, but the fact that so many conventions are out the window. Different sizes
Oh,
of video cards, different cooling arrangements on video cards, different power connectors. As a system builder, whether you're building at home or whether your profession is to build systems, it's kind of a time to like throw out all your assumptions and let's start over again and see what is
oh
the best
yeah.
way to build with these cards.
Mm-hmm. Not just I'd like to mention too, not just the video cards and things, but there's also been a little bit of some shakeup as far as the main power to the board. There was that oh, I can't recall now. It's 12 volt sort of straight to the board.
Oh
They're
yeah.
changing the whole 24 pin plug. Um, that's I don't I feel like that isn't it's there, but it isn't quite trickled itself out into the mainstream yet.
Yeah, for those that aren't aware, there's a new power supply standard coming out that's going to be a little more unified in terms of what voltage is provided to the motherboard. Because right now it has to provide like I don't even know what it's like, what 12 volt, 5 volt, 3 point something volt, um,
Hmm.
and that's a lot of complexity for the power supply to offer. And so therefore, there's a complexity is always just bad, right? Because the
Right.
quality it can't be achieved as well, efficiency isn't as good, and so now by saying 12 volt is what the motherboard is going to get. Power supplies are going to be significantly quieter, significantly probably even cheaper, more reliable. We're going to be moving some of the complexity of the motherboard, so we'll have some of the problems crop up there. But overall, like that's another example of something like this is good for the industry long
Hmm.
term, but it's chaos in the transition.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
so that's another thing. We'll probably be dealing with that next year, but absolutely that
Okay.
is. And then another one from 2020 is just how much explosion in storage we've seen. I know, it's been, SSDs are nothing new, but SSDs, it was probably more last year that SSDs are like, who has a platter anymore? Um,
Right.
and now we're at the point where pretty much everyone probably that has a respectable computer has an SSD that's more than they need.
Oh, sure.
Um, and you run NVMe SSDs. Now we're looking at PCIe Gen 4 SSDs. We're looking at like 7 gigs a second transfer speed. Like, who
That's
needs
so fast.
that?
I love it.
um,
I think it's
and
great.
and so now we have like all this raw horsepower that now we can say, now what can we do? And that's exciting.
Yeah.
It just takes a
Oh,
little
it
bit of
is.
time for the industry to come up with those use cases.
Yeah. That sort of topic has come up a lot when talking with Don, and data mining and data analysis and machine learning and things. We've had this data for decades, but we just didn't have the computational power to do anything with it. And now we're getting to this convergence point where the possibilities are endless. And I think that's, storage speed, storage capacities. All of this is just gonna help accelerate the possibilities of what can we do with all of this. It's going to be super cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's an interesting question from YouTube. Hakan Broderlund: seems like the 3090 is the only one with an NVLink connector, and that SLI is dead on the 3080 and below. What will that mean? That we can only do multi GPU setups with the 3090 and not 3080?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest, SLI was already dead, right? um, so if you're talking about like gaming, then yeah, if you still want to do SLI, I guess you'll have to have the 3090. But for a lot of the workstation workloads, rendering boxes or like post-production simulation boxes, photogrammetry, those weren't those were treating GPUs independently already. And so the fact that we don't have an
Right.
NVLink connector, we're not using shared memory in those. Those are just like independent little compute nodes that the software is using. So no difference. But
Right.
the big difference is the way that these things are cooled. The fact that
Yeah.
we don't yet see any blower style cards. And so stacking is essentially out of the question with these cards. We got to see, we've seen a bunch of third party designs or
Hmm.
add in card partners designs, and they all look to me like either dual or triple fan, almost like the Founders Edition 2080s, where
Right.
all the air gets vented back underneath the cards. They're like, yeah, you can stack maybe two in a system if you space them out and you put enough raw airflow through it. But the Founders Edition cards now from NVIDIA, at least we see now that there's a through airflow. The fan on the far side of the card actually is going to have air blowing through it, and so I'd say that's a really bad idea to stack those cards because you're just going to feed your hot air from one to the other.
Right.
We internally are already looking at ducting, maybe in the short term, some 3D printing to try to manage that airflow to get two GPUs into a system. But I think with an ATX system, two GPUs is probably going to be your safety limit for what you can put into a system. Now, the
Rough.
3090 is like a beast, right? Um, two GPUs, two 3090s in a system is like ridiculous already. So not that huge a
Yeah.
deal. But the big thing will be what do we see with Quadro? What do we see with professional cards? And like, are we going to see cards that we can continue to put in really dense like that, or are we going to have to go all the way to Tesla Ampere in order to put cards together like that? Hopefully not. Hopefully
Yeah.
not. But we don't know yet. Nobody knows yet.
Right. Fingers crossed that PNY keeps doing blower styles. That'd be nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, in addition to like, do people have the willingness to put out designs like that? It's a question of thermals and like with how many watts these things draw, can you actually get the heat out um, with a cooler like that style?
Right. Yoshi Fresh from YouTube. Previous employee, by the way, Yoshi Fresh. Do you think short term the supply of power supplies that have support for the additional power requirements of the new will be in shortage? So yeah, touching on the increased wattage demands.
All I can think of was who's Yoshi Fresh. I don't know screen names. But whoever you are, good to talk to you again. Okay, will the power supplies have support? Will be in shortage. Well, maybe. I'm not anticipating that myself. There's just going to be an awkward time where you're going to see some, power supplies that you have to do these like dongle adapters or like get a special cable that gives you the right connector. We haven't really seen the dust settle yet, at least from my desk, on what power connectors these cards are even going to have. I've seen plenty of third party designs where they have the same 8-pin connectors as previous gen. Not a lot of difference there. You just need to have, yes, a beefier power supply because this thing takes a lot more wattage. Soon enough, though, you'll see the power supply shipping with the 12-pin connector right in the box. So really, this is like, I think we saw a bigger impact with the crypto mining craze in the beginning of 2019. I think it's not gonna be nearly as bad as that. I don't believe, because this isn't as dramatic of a shift. It's just a new connector.
Right.
There's a lot of speculation, I think rightfully so, over like where's NVIDIA going with this? Like, why would they make a power connector capable of that much unless they had a plan for using that much? But at least on this first gen, no, it's not going to be that dramatic.
I feel like some of the pictures I've seen with 3 8-pin plugs on a card just kind of goes back around to that reinforcement of like you can't really do more than maybe 2 cards in a system. You're just not going to have enough plugs, really.
Yeah.
So,
well, and
man.
I haven't thought through the math yet. I mean, do you remember how many watts is a 3090 supposed to be?
I don't know.
I don't remember either. But like at some point, like it doesn't matter what your power supply can do. Like, can your wall outlet do it?
Oh, sure. That's no joke. NVIDIA says the RTX 3090 will be 50% faster than the Titan RTX and will require a 750 watt power supply. The card itself expected to utilize around 350 watts.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean that's not ridiculously more. I mean, it's not like an order of magnitude more than today.
That's true.
So you get yourself a 1200 watt, 1600 watt at the high end, and I anticipate that will be okay. What would be great is if we had a 3090 to tell you that it would be okay. But we're still working on that. Right? Everyone's still working on that. On getting some cards in to test with.
Yeah. NVIDIA said that PCIe 3.0 will not limit the performance more than a few percent, so even a PCIe should be fine. Oh yeah, we'll definitely be testing that sort of a thing. It'll, because that's gonna affect motherboards that we end up carrying and things like that down the road. And as it stands currently, I think kind of gives a bit of a plus in AMD's corner. Since I think they have boards or they will that are all X16 slots, aren't they? PCIe 4, all of them are X16, I think.
Oh, not the level of tech I'm able to comment off on.
I vaguely recall an image of that at least.
Okay. So. But yeah, I mean, it's no different than storage. Like, there's PCIe Gen 4 storage that we can do today, and that gives a leg up on AMD. And the question just comes back to, does your use case need it?
Right.
Of course, there's plenty of people that are enthusiastic about the progression of technology. We're like, I don't care if I need it, I want it.
Right.
But, your workload, does your workload need it? And historically, we've found that, even running PCIe 2.0 or running PCIe 3.0 at X8, basically zero impact across most workloads. But where it does get interesting is when we're talking about scientific computing, when we're really, injecting data onto these cards at a high rate. That's where we have seen it matter in the past. And that's the other thing that has me excited about about Ampere as well is that new, what do they call it, GPU Direct, or what are they calling it? RTX IO. I can't remember what they're calling it, but it's basically an API whereby the data it's marketed around gaming on GeForce, where you say you have your game files and they can be decompressed and loaded into video memory directly instead of having to go through the CPU, decompress into system memory, and then load into the GPU.
All
I mean
right.
that's great for gaming. Could be very great for simulation and scientific workloads as well. I don't
Sure.
believe that's actually a new technology. That's existed over on the Quadro Tesla side under, I think that is where it's called GPU Direct. But what's cool, I mean, the whole like symbiosis of consumer and professional is always interesting to me because you can have some things that like it's built, like the technology has existed, I think, for actually a long time, maybe even a decade. This GPU Direct, but you need to have this like mass market demand before the developers put time and energy into it. And so that's the cool
Right.
thing about like consumer drives professional in that way. Like it we might the professionals might not directly care that gaming supports this new thing, but they do care that developers are putting time and energy into it and then everything, is uplifted as a result.
Right. Do you think, and this is going to be really more speculative or and theory, I suppose. Do you think Nvidia is abandoning the GTX? It's all ray tracing, all RTX now. Because like they had done the 1660 Ti, which was kind of like an in between. Um, do you think the non ray tracing cards are kaput?
I would expect so. I mean, I don't think that they're going to go out of their. I'm totally just speculating now, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't.
pure theory craft here.
I, I don't think that they're going to go out of their way to kill off any GTX SKUs. I mean, we've seen things like the GT 1030 has been around for I don't even know how long, like a long
Sure,
time.
sure. Yeah,
Um, and I would expect that we're going to continue to see maybe even the 1660 for quite a while, just because it's a solid little GPU and it
hmm
isn't hurting any production lines to keep it going. But I don't think you're going to see anything new come out
there
that
no 6080 Ti or anything.
right, right. I just think we're already on the new. They're very Nvidia is very committed. These new features of the cards have use cases beyond just ray tracing in games, and if Nvidia wants to build an ecosystem, they need to like be all in. Um, the developers aren't going to want to put the time and energy into something that they think might not be a long term thing. So, yeah, yeah, I think that's the new paradigm for a while until the next thing comes around a decade from now.
Yeah, that'll be, man. Who would have thought that we'd be where we are today 10 years ago, and who knows man, it boggles the mind where we
Yeah,
might be 10 years from now. It's
I
is
I think it's really cool how much machine learning is just awesome. I see Don that you're on the chat, but I'd say it even if you weren't on the chat. I think machine
oh
learning is
yeah,
awesome. Um, it's it started off almost more academic. Let's classify cats, but
sure.
now the way that it's infused everywhere, and like we saw it in the demo NVIDIA gave on, was it Tuesday when that launched? Earlier this week, when they talked about
It
like, well,
was.
now with ray tracing, like one of the problems with ray tracing is it takes time to build that resolution, so it looks all grainy at first. And now they're using machine learning to like fill in the gaps, and so you can more quickly get to a high fidelity picture. It is ray traced with machine learning filling in the missing pixels so that it can ray trace even more quickly. And like
Oh
that's cool.
wow.
And I think features like that is why, like, yeah, I mean, they're going to want RTX across their product line because they're going to need those cores, those features to provide those functions, because those are like the little tricks for how we get big jumps in performance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that'll be cool. Oh, I had a thought and it just escaped me. In regards to well, the machine learning and AI and things like that, oftentimes come up in the sort of creative conversations that I have of taking the kind of tedious and mundane tasks and allowing people it just as we continue down this path, it's going to free up so much more time for those sort of fuzzy logic, more creative tasks that may not. be as appropriate for a computer to do. And
Sure.
that's really exciting stuff too. All this Roto Brush 2 just recently came out, and it seems near perfect. The content aware fill sort of stuff. Heck, you've even got Matt has mentioned a few times of where there's like AI or machine learning sort of algorithms or whatever that will take all of your footage and edit it for you, almost
Hmm.
like take the cuts and things like that. And man, it's I can't imagine. I mean, it'd be neat to see maybe a video game that's like we had this machine learning algorithm play through Doom or all these first person shooters 1,000 times, and this is the game that it made. It's kind of a thing
Oh,
that'd be really neat.
uh, yeah. Well, if there's anything, one thing that NVIDIA is particularly good at is building out ecosystems. I mean, like
Hmm.
CUDA is just dominant, right?
Yeah.
So, that's what they're doing again. They're going to be building out. They're going to continue to um, add new. I can't think of a word other than vibrance to the ecosystem by like bringing all these features into the APIs that the developers already know. And NVIDIA is very good at then teaming up with game engine developers and game studio developers and data scientists and engineers to then implement it and actually get industry adoption because
Hmm.
that's a big part of the battle. Like the tools have to exist. The industry has to actually use it as well. Like we've seen that problem with like RTX and gaming, right? That the features are
Right.
here. Where's the games? And it's slowly happening. It is slowly happening. And we're seeing that same thing on the professional side. Like when we first saw RTX come out, our thought was this is going to be awesome for for rendering,
Right.
to render in ray tracing. And yeah, it's getting there. Yeah, it is getting there. But it's we're impatient. We want it to happen faster. It was so.
Yeah.
But NVIDIA is very good at fostering that like ecosystem over time.
Yeah. It seems too that especially if I recall correctly in some of my talks with Don, that a big reason that CUDA blew up the way that it did is because they made it easier to use than OpenCL, I think is the
Hmm.
alternative. Um, but they kind of put a really nice wrapper around what is otherwise a really complex system to kind of use,
Well, and
which
they openly engaged. Like they took the people that were responsible for coming up with that code and said, "How can we help you? Would you like a video card?" And they made it difficult to say no as a developer to get that assistance. And so therefore, I mean, that's why so many things are leaned in that direction. And it had to happen that way.
right.
We're still seeing this is 2020, and we're still seeing like applications that have no GPU acceleration and are single threaded. Like that's code that was built in like the 90s. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort to take advantage of new hardware features.
Yeah. It's yeah. Um, man, I'm curious to know. So AMD's been killing it on the CPU side. There's no argument there. Um, they are. It's leaps and bounds. I started with the company maybe a month or so before the first Ryzen launch,
Yeah.
and that was it was it's felt like more of the same. I hadn't had my finger on the pulse of things a whole lot at that time, but it felt like basically more of the same kind of thing. It wasn't much of an improvement, but now here we are 5 years later, and AMD now is a huge contender. They are basically neck and neck. And do you think that they have what it takes to do the same thing on the GPU side?
Oh. What's a polite way to say it? I'm much more
without making anybody upset. I
no, no.
understand you have a fine line to
I'm
toe, but
I'm much more excited about the CPU side. I'm hopeful and I'm gunning for them, but well, we have to just wait and see.
sure.
I I'm supportive but skeptical. But really,
Okay.
that's where I was 2 years ago on the CPU
Sure.
side, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
don't count anyone out. Yeah, the CPU race has been interesting too for us because, well, I think the last big before this recent success AMD had. We were doing quad Opteron. It was the Opteron, was it Bulldozer CPUs? We were doing
Ooh.
quad socket systems. It was a way to get like obscenely high core count systems that now we can get in like a single Threadripper, but really high core count systems. But ever since then, like yeah, I think there was a short period in time where we stopped carrying AMD CPUs,
Hmm.
but for many years we carried them. We just sold like one a month. It was
Right.
such low volume, and that was just because AMD always has had a spot um, in budget builds, and has definitely played a role there. Kept Intel honest, kept pricing in check. But for the types of systems that we build, where it's very much like mission focused, it has to perform really well. It has to be the fastest. We're not really in the mission of selling somebody something that's slower to save them money, because the reason they're coming to us is they need to be faster. It's like it just doesn't fit with what we do. So I mean
Right.
that turned its head with, like you said, with Ryzen 2. We're like, okay, now this is actually competitive. Even when it was competitive, I mean, we weren't selling very many because
Right.
competitive isn't good enough. It has to be faster.
Better.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't until this last generation that it was. And I'm happy to even share on stream here that so we're doing 50% by revenue is AMD builds these days. Percent by volume,
Ooh.
but 50% by revenue, and it's that difference is because of Threadripper, because you can buy these
Sure.
64 core like beast CPUs, and they're very expensive CPUs. And like 6 months ago, a year ago, I never would have guessed that to be the case.
Right.
I guess I don't think that there's anything around the corner that's going to make the one or two generations. It's really
Yeah.
difficult to say. I'm seeing on chat that like, yeah, we've been disappointed so many times by Radeon. Yeah, but you know what? We said the same thing about CPUs a few years ago. So we
Right.
just need to, I'll make the same commitment that I made on CPUs. I remember emailing the entire office when we dropped. There was a brief period where we dropped AMD entirely, and I
Yep.
said, but I commit that we will continue on every launch to retest, revalidate, reassess the decision, and that's exactly where we're at right now on the GPUs. We're not carrying them; they're not volume, but we're going to keep assessing, and it changes. If that changes, then cool. We have competition
Yeah.
in GPUs too.
That'd be great. Which also, Intel working on a GPU? What? That's kind of.
Yeah, everyone wants all the pie. But that's another
Yeah.
thing to be excited about because they have some real capacity to get that done too.
Hmm.
Don't underestimate Intel when they execute well. Intel is
Sure.
big enough that they can execute poorly a lot of times, but when they execute well, they can get some amazing things done. I'm
Hmm.
not expecting the Intel GPU to like knock our socks off on generation one,
Right.
but we'll see. Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a pretty nuts year. Do you know when we're expected to see the first GPU from Intel? I don't know.
I don't. That's what Z, I think that's what they're calling it. The
Yeah,
Z
yeah.
GPU. Let's see.
Somebody in chat will, I'm sure, will post. But
Let's see who can Google
it's not
faster,
too far
me or
off.
chat. Uh, they said so in late 2019 they said that they would launch in mid 2020.
Hmm.
Let's see, August 4th. Here's one from Tom's Hardware. Apparently on the 2nd, this was back in August, Tom's Hardware said that Z Graphics were expected to join the dedicated graphics card fray on September 2, which was 2 days ago.
But that's when they announced
So,
like Tiger Lake, and so now it's like more integrated graphics type of stuff. So I don't think we've seen. I don't know. I
interesting.
could be wrong, but it is getting close. It is getting close. Um, Cody asked in chat, did the Radeon 7 make us rethink our stance on AMD
Oh,
GPUs? Yes, yes, it did.
yeah.
I mean, I remember Labs was super enthusiastic about the Radeon 7. Unfortunately, it was not a long-lived product. Is it still? Is it still a thing? It was a great proof that AMD can execute competitive performance, but
Right.
it didn't have the availability, it didn't have the lifespan, it didn't go to market in a way that we could use it. But the technology itself was pretty amazing, and it showed that there is actually a competitor here.
Yeah, I don't. Just a quick poke around, doesn't look like there are any for sale. I'm seeing a couple new, maybe slash used ones for like $1,300 on Amazon.
Well, you know what you can
So
get for $1,300 now.
yeah, right. Uh, two 3080s. So we did have one question come through on Twitter, and I am actually really interested to see what you have to say on this one, because I know what I would have say to this.
Okay, all right.
So Waters for Life on Twitter, he says, as an A plus Net Plus certified tech for 30 plus years computer experience, why should I let Puget Systems build my next system versus ordering the parts and putting it together myself?
Yeah, okay. That's the kind of thing where I think people expect that to be like a little more inflammatory, and maybe it is with some other companies. But honestly, if that's what you want to do, we fully support that. That's not who we are trying. That's not who we're helping. Is people that can and want to and have the time to do it themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a question of like same thing as like working on your car. If you want to work on your car, you want to change your oil, go for it. That's awesome, right? But if you don't, take it into the shop, and that's the same for us. So we are here for the people that either can't, don't have the knowledge, or don't have the time and energy to do that. And really don't discount that. Like as a consumer, you might think like, oh, but I can save so much money by doing it myself. Well, if you're a professional and your job relies on this computer to be working, like every minute that you're working, swapping out your power supply or like, figuring out why it's blue screening in Premiere is a minute that you're not paying the bills. And so that's why we exist. Like we exist so that we can do that, so that it's it's our necks on the line to make sure that you're up and running, and you have someone to call and say like, "Hey, I'm having a problem. You need to figure this out." And like that's the whole reason why we exist. I have a lot of confidence in that answer because of how I don't know because of how terrible I know this industry can be. I don't know of a better way to say that. With like
Hey,
products that launch and then they just like flat out don't work. They're really problematic. Windows updates killing stuff. New
yeah.
new drivers coming out that like now this driver came out and now Premiere crashes. Like we have to keep on top of all of that, and that's a lot of work. We have to keep on top of that in order to provide that long term reliable system for someone. So if that's
Mm-hmm.
something you have the appetite to do, no judgment. Like that's awesome. That totally you can make that choice for yourself. But ultimately, that is a choice for yourself. So anyway, okay, I got on my soapbox. but
No,
yeah, that
I
it's if that's not what you want to be spending your day doing, then come to us.
Uh, uh, I've always had the thought that when it really comes down to it, we are in the business of selling time
Yeah,
to people. Um, yes, you could take the time to go through all our articles and research all
yeah,
the right parts that are going to make sense for you. You can wait for those parts to show up to your house. You're going to take the couple hours out of your day to put it together. You're going to take a couple hours out of your day to make sure everything is set up correctly and all this stuff. Who are you going to if a part breaks during that build, you're going to wait 6 weeks for RMA. If like you said, the software doesn't work right, you're going to be on the horn waiting for answers. All of that adds up to, I mean, probably at least the cost of all those parts in time that you've
yeah.
used, or not necessarily wasted. It depends on the value of your time and how you want to spend that. But yeah,
And it's one thing to say like I'm a consumer. My time is worth X number of dollars per hour. But talking as a professional to say like, okay, I have this video spot I have to deliver on Friday. My computer crashed on Wednesday. I just lost the client. Like, that's
hmm
way more than the cost of time.
um one of the recent guests we had, Pi Jersa, he had mentioned that he had lost five photos. This was more of a process issue, like he didn't follow his very strict step by step, but it cost him 5 grand, 25% of that project, like, revenue out the window because he lost 5 photographs out of hundreds.
Mm, yeah,
And that
yeah.
and
When
that's
yeah,
yeah, I think that's
when
it
you're a
right there.
service provider, like you have to perform, and it's the cost of not performing. And so yeah, it's the same reason why you like don't buy junky tools. I okay, now I'm not making the equivalency that if you build your own it's junky. It's just it's the importance of a good quality tool, whether you do it yourself or whether it's done for you. And frankly, like
Yeah.
don't be ashamed. We put our content out there for the world so that you can take the information, the time and energy that we put into it, and help yourself. Like, if we
Hmm.
didn't want you to help yourself, we wouldn't make it public. And I'll be real candid. Like, one of the reasons why we do that is because if you're somebody that has the capability of building yourself, I want to help you, and I want you to be someone that's out there, saying good things about us because we're just helping everyone. We're helping the community.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of like, I wouldn't karma, I guess. Do good, it'll all come back to
Uh-oh.
you.
Oh, there we
Am
go.
I lost?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
No, it paused and then it caught up, so it was okay. We have a question from Twitch, from
Okay.
Deddy actually. Question: what is the next business space John would like to enter? And he says, "Wink, wink, Twitch streamers."
We already have a Twitch streamer PC, right? Okay, honest answer. And we're already starting to work on this. Is game engine developers. We
Mm,
already help game studios. In fact, I think this started a few years ago. We probably sell more computers to game studios than we sell to gamers.
oh yeah.
And it's cool because it's the same kind of computer, but it's much more. Again, it's the same thing. Like it has to perform. It has to do well because that's their job. Um, the reason why game engines I'm interested in. First of all, that keeps uplifting the game studio clients that we already have. But there's so many cool things going on in the industry right now, specifically because of lockdowns and quarantines, where like virtual remote production and like virtual sets, more like real time rendering movies instead of like traditional film type movies. I think that's a real, I don't want to call it a battleground, but like a forefront of progress in the whole creative industry. And so, yeah, that's that's already where we're going down the road of helping more, and I'm excited about it.
Me too. The more I hear from different creatives about virtual production in general, and also the combination of so like the virtual production combined with sort of the democratization of content creation. Like you can
Yes,
do remarkable
yes,
things with this little box in your pocket, combined with a fairly conservative or modest machine. I think we're going to see a huge explosion in some really creative content in the
yeah,
next years to come. It's
yeah.
going to
And
be mind blowing.
I love that. I love that word, by the way. Democratization of X of anything. You look at the credits for major films, and you get to like the rotoscoping section, and it's like, here's the 80 people that just rotoscope for 3 years. Oh, I don't
Yeah,
even like. I've never actually even rotoscoped once, but I'm already exhausted hearing that.
it's
Um, and to hear
it's
that,
from what I've seen, it's a work. It's a job for
yeah.
sure.
But so now, not only okay, so like first of all, the big studios are now going to be able to put out faster, more on budget, like big blockbusters because whatever the AI, Skynet's doing the
Yep.
rotoscoping now. Um, but by extension, we have a democratization of studios where like now you don't have to have 300 people on staff to put out a really feature film. Like you can do it with, I don't know, like a much smaller team. And that
Hmm.
just drives more innovation. It drives more competition. It lowers the bar to entry. Frankly, it makes everything just a whole lot more fun because of what people can do now. And that's what makes me always like excited about technology. Like technology enables us to do things that we didn't even think were going to be possible 5 years
Oh
ago.
yeah,
Like we couldn't even think of 5 years ago. That's what keeps me going.
I love it. I think it's super cool that you can. There's it's so the bar or the barrier I should say to entry
Right.
for it all is so is low. Like if one person, there's so many
Yeah.
stories out there of just one person making a game or a movie or a cool photograph or something and just blowing up, and it didn't take a production company to say, yeah, we'll make your thing, or
Yeah,
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 our focus groups approve. You can just put yourself out there and let an audience kind of come to you in a way. And
yeah.
I
And
love, gives me goosebumps.
yeah,
It's
I
really
mean,
cool.
that's what I love about content. Like even go back to Twitch streamers. I mean, that's what I love. I could probably consume more music on YouTube from artists who like haven't signed a label. Like they're just recording their stuff and putting it up on YouTube. And like sometimes it's even like a crappy quality, but it's like it's authentic and creative, and anything they want to try, they can just do. So I love that, whether it's feature films or just a song somebody puts together. It's cool that you don't have to like get signed on by a major label to do that now.
I love it. It's really cool. Let's see. We got some just some positive feedback. As a tinkerer with computers, creative professional, I have to say I love your articles. Hats off, hand to heart.
Nice,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I like that kind of thing. I've had a few. So in case any of you in the audience don't know, I'm the guy behind our social media accounts. That's me. I often receive, or I've occasionally received messages of like, hey, I didn't purchase with you guys. I went with somebody else, but if not for all of the information you put out, I would have made some poor choices. Like I used all of that to help educate a different, and I think that's okay. I think that's a big plus.
Absolutely.
Even like, oh man, we didn't. It's not a customer, but we still helped out. And I think, and all the time I'm getting tagged saying, oh hey, I don't want to build my own computer. Who should I go through? And we'll get put in there. And I do my best to try and reach out to folks who are genuinely looking to have our sort of assistance. And
Yeah,
so, but
absolutely.
it warms my heart knowing that we're helping
Absolutely.
people regardless of whether they're purchasing from us. I
and
try
and
and answer
and
questions
and
and
we're
things
being
all the
helped
time.
back. Like it really is a two-way street. Like, okay, yes, technically the best thing you can do to help us is to financially support by purchasing a computer, but the number two thing that you can do, which is a very strong number two, is to support a reputation. There's
Hmm.
lots of people with voices out there, and that does us a world of good as well. Because if we're going to sell a bunch of workstations into some big, like Disney or like some big production firm, we have to have a reputation built, and that takes an army of people. So we appreciate it. It goes both ways. Like, thank you for using our content, and thank you for. I'm glad it helped, because that helps
Yeah,
us too.
yeah. Diddy has another fun question for you. He says, "What is the weirdest PC problem John has seen?" It says for him, he's been fighting a lot of the Asus Z370, 390 boards. Something talk about multi-core, set latest BIOS, hold the CPU at base clock, that sort of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, turbo problems are always the strangest, because it's kind of, you don't even know you have it, and frankly a lot of times probably people have turbo issues that like they will never even know in their life with their computer, because like who's gonna put their computer through like single core workload, two core workload, three core workload, and like make sure it's performing at the right specs? We do, by the way. There's a plug for buying from us, so we put it through the paces when we okay. Craziest. Way back. Am I still frozen? Am I back?
No, no, you're good. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go all the okay. Yeah. I wish I had home internet like we have at work. I need gigabit fiber here at home. Okay, strangest problem. I'm gonna go all the way back to 2001. It took me a couple weeks to solve this thing, where I had a problem with a board that was not posting, and I would do the things that you do when you have a node problem, like remove all the variables. I'm going to take out all the add-in cards. I'm going to unplug all the things I don't need. Now does it post? And it would post. Okay, great. I'm going to add stuff back together. Now does it post? And I'd add all the things back in, and it would post. And I'd say, okay, maybe it was like a partially plugged in RAM module or something. And so I button up the whole thing, put it back on the test bench, no post again. And it took me a long time to figure out that it was actually a grounding issue with the motherboard that only exhibited itself when I screwed in the PCIe cards tightly. if I unscrewed the PCIe cards, the ground was broken just enough, or whatever problem was
Yeah.
broken just enough that everything would post just fine. Because like when you're doing troubleshooting, like you don't like wrench down your PCIe cards when you're swapping them in for
Right.
troubleshooting. So anyway, that was the strangest problem. I'm
Oh,
sure it
wow.
had to do with a very poor choice of chassis or very poor choice of power supply when like you have a grounding problem like that. But yeah, it says something that 20 years later I'm still like upset about it.
My favorite, which is one, thinking back on it, I should have caught before um, it was even a problem. Um, it was here.
Uh huh.
Um, Same sort of issue. Board wasn't posted. It was a dual CPU system. Um, wouldn't post. Took one out. Trying to, like you're saying, pieces one piece at a time. It would post just fine with one CPU, either one in either socket. Hassle, hassle, hassle. Turns out I had a model of CPU that did not support dual CPU. Like it was
Oh,
meant for only a single socket.
right.
And again, I should have noticed that as the assembly person. I should have noticed before, but
Oh, but
that
like
was
that's how the computer was spec'd and came to you.
yes.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
uh,
A reasonable expectation that it would be spec'd properly.
sure,
Okay.
but just reinforces the idea that you should be diligent and kind of swings back to that sort of a deal. If that had been me, just me by myself,
Right.
how long would that have taken me to figure out without asking somebody else, like, hey, what's going on with this?
And you'd have
Um,
to like return those CPUs and buy other CPUs. Like it'd be weeks.
yeah.
I thought
Excuse me.
I thought you were going to talk about because I remember on stream how many times you had to swap GPUs into those ESC 4000s with the
Oh
PCIe
yeah.
riser cards.
Oh yeah.
So we had these
That was
problems
fun.
where like I don't think we ever accurately pinned down where the problem was because it was
Mm-mm.
like so these PCIe riser cards, PCI bifurcation or PLX, it basically looks like a network. And so it's almost the same as troubleshooting. Like I have packet loss in my house. Where is it? Is it the connectors? Is it the wiring? Is it the termination points? It's the same thing. Like we have this system.
Yeah.
Is it the motherboard? Is it the risers? Is it the video cards? Is it the power supply? And I remember there was like you would swap in things and it seemed to fix it, but then the problem would crop up again later because it wasn't so much that it was like it wasn't a binary like fixed or not fixed. It
Yeah.
was always like, is it strong enough to survive our like stress tests?
Right. Right.
But
Oh,
anyway,
that one was a fun one.
yeah. To this day, we can't look at those. I mean, frankly, it probably wasn't even Azusa's fault. It was like, anyway, but we can't look at those ESC 4000s and
Gremlins.
not think, yeah, yeah, it's exactly. And it's more a feature of like, PLX and risers. And again, coming back to simple. Simple is always better when it comes to technology because there's just too many
Yeah.
variables already.
So this is a good question, a good topic that comes up often enough elsewhere. A question: does shipping to the UK make financial sense, or is the shipping just too much? If so, do you have a partner or recommendation for anyone to use in the UK?
Oh, okay. So shipping to the UK can make sense. It depends. Like, I wouldn't buy a $1,200 system and ship it to the UK, but we do a lot of like $20,000, $30,000 workstations. In which case, what's another $1,000 to ship it to the UK? So that part isn't so much the barrier point, but definitely like okay, now if you're importing a $20,000 workstation, like there's a lot of taxes there that potentially could be more than you would pay buying from within the country. But the big thing that has held us back, in fact, we exited. We did exports to UK, Canada, Australia, and Mexico for quite some time. We exited that specifically because of the customer experience we were able to provide. Once we start talking about crossing time zones, crossing languages, crossing cultures, and customs, the experience was not at the bar that we felt like we wanted to achieve in order to do that. But stay tuned because we are actively working on a way to. Again, it's the same kind of thought process. Like we can help each other not necessarily by selling you a computer, but we're working on ways that we can actually get the goodness that we provide to the industry out into other geographies by partnering up with other companies and other geographies. And I'm already saying too much, but that's like one of the goals that we have, is to say like, well, we're doing all this work. Our goal is to help people. Why are we limiting ourselves to the U.S.? Like, what are more creative ways that we can help people? Probably isn't going to look like buying a computer and shipping it overseas, because that shouldn't be the bottleneck. It's the knowledge that is the hard part, and the knowledge we can get overseas easy, right?
Sure.
So yeah, keep keep
Franchising
watching.
opportunities.
Maybe not quite that far, but no, keep watching. It's something we're just starting to work on, and we're excited to roll out as soon as it is ready.
Someone commented, LOL Cool J mentions, please add music production related benchmarks. I know we've looked into this in the past.
Yeah,
we were investigating doing digital audio workstation sort of product. Where did we hit a roadblock with that?
It was not anything in particular. It was just time and energy focus. Again, if we do too many things, we're going to start doing them poorly. So coming up with more ways that we can scale what we're doing will allow us to take on more diverse projects, and audio production is absolutely one of them. We were pretty far along. Like, we were looking at, because what's most important with audio is like low latency, and we were doing work to figure that out. We do help plenty of audio engineers. We have someone on staff who does that like as a hobby, and whether I don't know if he wants it or not, but anytime that somebody calls in, they're like, oh, you need to talk to him. So we have somebody that can have educated conversations with you. We just don't have articles and benchmarks out. But we are continuing to do things. We're working to change up the way that we do a lot of our testing in labs. I can talk about this for a minute. I don't think Eric will mind if I talk about this. We're part of the problems with labs is that we're expecting our labs technicians to be experts in their field, to benchmark hardware, write articles, go on live streams, develop benchmarks. Like, so they have to like be everything. Engineers and programmers and industry experts and like on-screen personalities. Like, you're not gonna find that. Like, that's a really challenging position to fill. And so we're working at breaking that up a little bit and having people like specifically for just testing the crap out of hardware, to have people that combine those results into results that can be used in article writing, having industry experts that probably are the same ones that go on live streams and do speaking engagements and that type of thing. But the point is, if we can free up our traditional, like, existing labs technicians to not have to spend so many hours of the day swapping out a CPU, running the test again, swapping out a CPU, running the test again, that frees up more time that we can say yes to more applications, and audio production is absolutely on that list.
I think this one's directed more toward me. Zero Alpha Design Co. says, any chance you guys could do an episode on best practices for optimizing your workstation for After Effects? I would like to ask a clarifying question. What do you mean by optimizing your workstation? Is it a hardware thing? Like, what parts should I buy? Is it peripherals that you should buy? The physical space, the system hardware, the software? Because optimizing your storage for that sort of a thing can make a difference as well. So what specifically are you looking to optimize? Because I do think that is something we can do. I would just want to know more about what it is you're looking for.
Yeah. And that sounds like Workflow Wednesdays to me. So our Wednesday streams is where we bring on somebody who's like actually successfully makes a living doing something in the field. And we bring them on. Traditionally, no, we're not it's not like a webinar format where it's like, we're going to teach you everything you need to know. But it's like this. It's a Q&A. It's an opportunity to ask those questions. So you could, Zero, keep an eye on our Wednesday schedule and see. I'm confident it won't be too long before somebody who has experience in After Effects will come on Wednesday.
Oh, absolutely. We've had a few VFX folk already. So But I appreciate questions like that because I'm pretty much an every just kind of average Joe sort of person, and so the more specific questions that I can get to ask the experts, the better. So I'll make note of that and try and make sure the relevant person answers for you. uh, oh man, some usernames. Hydro Spanky Sick on Twitter. He's asking, why did you guys stop making laptops?
It's the same reason we stopped exporting, because there was a bar that we wanted to hit for the user experience, and without significant more investment, we weren't going to be where we wanted to be. Um, I don't think that was always the case, but as new generations of hardware came out, what's happening more and more on laptops is they're getting more and more thin and light, smaller, more integrated, and as they're getting more integrated, there's less that we can do. Like I could take a laptop, put our logo on it, and sell it to you, but like, what am I actually doing? What value are we providing? And so that's why we made the decision when we did to stop with laptops. It was painful. Like at our height, 40% of our business was laptops, and that's a painful thing to
Wow.
walk away from. But we did because we knew it would be a detriment to our brand and no good to anyone for us to just be yet another laptop provider selling yet another rebrand of the same laptops that everyone else is selling. So that's why we made the decision we did. Now, where that could change in the future. Oh no, is anyone from
No, you're
Puget on
good.
the stream? Okay,
Oh,
no,
oh.
because I cause like PTSD anytime I start talking about laptops internally. Where that could change in the future though is when we have enough voice and ability to actually make changes to the product. Because the stuff that always bugged us was like we were selling, there's this laptop you can buy that's like $3,000, but they skimp on the trackpad. Like they save $10 on the trackpad. And at the level that we were operating at, we could not go and say, no, you have to put in this high quality trackpad. So at a time in the future where we are to re-enter into laptops, it would be with those requirements that we dictate the BOM, we dictate what goes into that, and that's going to mean running manufacturing runs for ourselves, which is really expensive. And so
Yeah.
we have to. There's a very high bar to that. I'm not against it, but we're really busy already. So there's
Right.
other things that we're focusing on first.
Right on. Um, yeah, because I personally use one of our big monster laptops,
The
and
beast.
yeah, it works great. It just weighs 15 pounds without the chart, without the brick. Like, are there types of so this is from Moose does stuff. A longtime viewer of the old streams even.
Yeah. Cool.
Are there types of productions you specifically don't want to get into?
I'm not quite sure how to interpret the question actually.
Hmm. I feel like we hit a lot of, at least as far as content creation, we kind of, outside of audio at least, we kind of service everybody in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say like we don't do a lot of. It depends on what the question means. Like if the question means, okay, we're selling to creative artists, but we look at what they produce first and make sure it's something we don't disagree with. We don't really. I don't feel like that's our place. Like we're providing tools to do a job. It's like saying, are you willing to sell a wrench to somebody who puts together things for
Bombs.
evil? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if there's something blatant, we do occasionally have to make decisions like that, but by and for the most part, I don't feel like it's a lot of our business. We're here to provide the raw tools into the industry and then trust that humanity does more good than evil.
Oh, he clarifies by saying like you haven't gotten into audio because
Oh,
reasons. Was
I
wondering if there's
totally.
anything that's, yeah.
Okay, no, I totally misread the question then. No, but I would say, like, really honestly, there are things that we have to be realists about when it comes to how much time, energy, expenses are we going to have to invest in order to accomplish something, and what ROI do you think we can get out of that? Because ultimately, like, we have to pay the bills, we have to pay our people, and so if there isn't something where we think that there's a big enough market for, or like we think that like consumer level PCs can already do the job just fine. So like, why would you get a high end workstation from a boutique provider like Puget? Um, in those cases, we say no, they don't need us. we don't need to enter. It's not necessarily that like I'm against any particular workload. It doesn't make the business model doesn't make sense.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Right on. Oh. We have hit our hour, so if you guys have any other questions you'd like to get them in now.
That hour
Man, that was
it flies by.
it
That's
really
fine.
does. um, is there anything that you would like to talk about before we head out? Anything you'd like to
Oh,
mention?
just we're just coming up on a pretty exciting couple of weeks here as we prep. We all saw the real. I mean, the big story right now is the Ampere launch from Nvidia, and
Mm-hmm.
so we're
Mm-hmm.
going to be. I was talking with our product team this morning about we have test beds all laid out, and we're ready to test our hearts out as soon as product arrives. So look for lots of content and probably some pretty interesting discussions around how we design workstations. Are we going to have to flip some conventions on their head in order to
Sure.
achieve good, quiet, cool running workstations? I don't know yet. I have some suspicions, but until we actually have product in hand, it's all speculation. So I'm excited for a lot of the speculation to turn into hard facts over the next coming weeks.
Yeah, I'm always excited about the real data,
Hmm.
because marketing graphs are silly. I'm man, I get I get emotionally tired of seeing bad
Right.
graphs that
Yeah.
have that don't explain the axes, that are all askew and don't make any sense. Ugh,
Yeah.
Mar-
And
as a
NVIDIA isn't.
marketing person myself, I'm tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah, NVIDIA isn't traditionally egregious with that type of thing,
That's
but we all need to keep in mind all we saw was a launch video. Like, so we
right.
all need to keep in mind like how is this going to apply? And frankly, because it's always this way with marketing, it's not going to be as high. It's not going to be 2x
Right.
in all these workloads. But we have to see where it is. There are going to be some really amazing workloads, and we just have to find where those diamonds are, and that's the work we're going to be doing.
Yeah. I'm excited. I feel like we're going to see a lot more. It seems like the 3090 is the replacement to the Titan. The 3080
Yep.
is the new 2080 Ti. I feel like, honestly, I feel like we're going to see a lot of the what would have normally been considered like mid tier, being a lot more mainstream now. Just it seemed this is another humongous jump. I think, even if it isn't quite to the level that the marketing people are saying it is, this is going to be a big jump, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as when we're talking about big production studios. It's lowering the bar. It means that now you can
Mm-hmm.
buy a 3070 for $499, and you can achieve something that last generation you had to spend twice as much for. So that's awesome. That's amazing. It also means if you spend the same amount as last generation, you can now do twice as much.
Yeah,
So both of those things are exciting.
super cool. Always just interesting times, very exciting stuff. So we're gonna say goodbye then. Thank you, John, for taking the time out of your day to join us on our
Absolutely.
lab's open office hour, and thank you as well, the audience, for taking time out of your day to join us and ask some really good questions. We do this every Wednesday and Friday, 1 o'clock Pacific time. Wednesdays are industry experts. We bring in people from outside the company to talk about their workflow, how they do their thing, get a little peek behind the curtain that I feel like the general public don't often get to see as far as the creative process. And then Fridays, we bring in an employee or a member of our own team to kind of discuss more of the crossover of hardware and software and how that affects the creative process and things like that. So mark your calendars, 1 p.m. Pacific time, Wednesdays and Fridays. And yeah, I think that's it.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.